The following program is a Town of Colonie television production of the William K. Sanford Town Library.
Well, welcome to Open Door on the Arts. My name is Joe Nash. Today we're going to be talking about the Sage Theater over in Troy, their upcoming production of Diary of Anne Frank in February. I'll give you the dates in a minute. We have with us David Baecker, who is the chairman of the department over there, and he's going to be acting in it. And we have Eileen, Schuyler, who is the director. So welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
I just want to, before we start talking about the play, one quick thing. You're not really a repertoire company. You're actually an academic department.
Yes.
And most of your plays, several are during the day, but people can still go during the day. And you have a combination of professional actors and mostly students, is that right?
Mostly students, some professional actors, and I think what makes us unique are the morning performances, because we will do usually around 6 morning performances for elementary, junior high, high school students, and we may see up to 3,000 students during that time.
Okay, well that is good. So this season they did The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. You just finished Oliver. And I was just saying before we started, I tried to get tickets. The morning ones are all sold out. So how is the season going?
Really well. Oliver sold well. Sleepy Hollow sold well. It was a good time of year for Sleepy Hollow. And again, with a title like Anne Frank and the connections to New York State curriculum, we expect it to sell pretty well too.
Oh, good. And so Eileen, you were directing. So this new version, maybe you could both comment on this because you're both longtime theater people. The story of Anne Frank is that a story we kind of think we all know, but do we really know that?
Well, I don't know how much the young people who are going to be in it know, and certainly the students who are coming to see it, for many of them, I think it'll be their first introduction to this
now,
story.
The book is still part of the...
The book is part of the, but the book is, they will, I assume that they study this in the curriculum, they read it. And I don't know whether the book that the students read has changed, but when Mr. Frank died, there were certain sections that he kept back, things about her that he was trying to protect her legacy, and he was a little squeamish about her coming of age and so forth. And so the full diary has now been released.
The full diary has been published since then.
Yes, and so I'm assuming that they get the full diary, the students do.
Yeah. For my daughter's birthday, I just bought her the graphic novel.
Okay, that just came out, yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those books these days. We were talking before about getting older. Like Animal Farm, and they're coming out in that graphic version. But the Diary of Anne Frank,
and they're not too bad.
I read some of them.
I read through it. Yeah,
they're actually pretty good. So, the original play was in the 50s,
1955,
and then this play was adapted by Wendy Kesselman, and she's an award-winning playwright, and she takes this new edition of the diaries, the complete edition, what the father left out, and there's other stuff. It's based on the complete diary, so. Before we started, you're telling me you've been in Anne Frank twice.
I was in the original version.
So
two
how
times.
does this version, how does it differ? I mean, what did they...
Well, it's fundamentally the same play, but I think it's a little stronger, a little tougher. The end, talking about revealing what happened to all the people, is a little different. They're more Jewish. Like, for example, the Hanukkah scene, they sing the songs in Hebrew. In the original version, they sang in English. Mr. Dussel goes up in the attic and prays when the planes are flying overhead. That's a little more, I think people weren't ready for that in 1955, but this is a little more Jewish. There's a little scene which, as we were talking about before, reveals Anne's growing sexuality. It's just very mild, but it wasn't at all in the original production. But many of the scenes remain fundamentally the same. It's just a little tougher.
So this new version, she adapted. Did she keep?
She kept most of the original. It's very, in many. There's some scenes that are maybe shortened or slightly shifted, but the fundamental play is the same.
Now, David, have you been in this play before?
No.
But you know you've
Oh, yes.
seen it. So I don't know if this gives anything away, but is the beginning a little different? I've read something about the beginning is a little different when the characters talk.
I haven't held them side by side, but they arrive and they
The
set
ending
things up.
certainly is different.
The ending is very different, and I think that's very key. And
So have you consulted the original script, or are you just using this?
I'm using this one.
You're using this one,
Yeah.
okay. So what do you think audiences will get out of this version, maybe compared to the others?
Well, I think it's a little more visceral experience of what happened to the people when you learn that every single person who was in that annex, except Mr. Frank, perished in horrible ways one after another. And he comes out and tells us. And I think that there's no hiding from it. It isn't sweetened, it isn't softened, it isn't Americanized. It's the real story of what happened.
Your character, you at the end come out and
and
address the audience?
and without much sentimentality, talk about what happened to everybody, and it's a gut punch.
Now,
It really is. And in the end, he picks up the diary and says, "This is all we have left."
So how did the father, I'm trying to remember the story, how did the father survive? Did he not get taken to the camp?
He was taken, I believe, to Auschwitz, and he lived,
Some people survived.
and he survived.
And Anne almost survived. I mean, she
was within
right at
months.
right at the very end. But she got typhus, and I think a lot of people died from typhus. And then there were the forced marches, which I think Peter went on. There was a lot when they knew that the camps were going to be liberated. They took all the people in the camps and they made them go on a forced march so that they wouldn't be there when the soldiers came. And they they were starved and they had typhus and they were exhausted and thin, and they just dropped and they let them go, and so many people died that way, and I think that's what they say about Baecker. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So so how do you, as a director, how do you deal with a play about the Holocaust? It seems
Well, I think this play is a story on a lot of different levels. The first level, and at which the audience connects, is a young girl who's with her family, and she's a young teenager, and she is growing up. And there is that story, and it makes it very easy for us to have a doorway in. Just this young girl that we can associate with, and
like almost
teasing.
like a typical teenager.
Like a typical teenager fighting with the boy and making a lot of noise and having nightmares and not getting along with her mother and saying hurtful things and so forth, and having certain talents. She's a developing talent as a writer. And so we have a doorway in. We totally can accept her. She's very straightforward and open. And so I think rather than being an iconic figure, she's just a kid.
Yeah.
So we have that level. Then there's the level of her and her family and the dynamics in that. And then the next level is this other family who are very different type of people.
The people that are
The Van
hiding
Daan
it?
family.
Okay.
Their name wasn't really Van Daan, but she gave them that name
okay.
because she was thinking maybe she would make this into a novel, so she gave them fictional names.
Okay.
Their name was Van Pelt, the real people.
All right.
And then Mr. Dussel, who is this shy, awkward, uncomfortable dentist who's had to leave his non-Jewish partner behind and come, and they accept him in, and he doesn't fit anywhere. So these people are together in this kind of crucible. They're in this small confined space. They can't leave, and they have to find a way to live together. And that is a story that is also very interesting for us to watch. There's sort of fights between, and so they're all human beings trying to live in this little space. Then there are the radio broadcasts that come in, and the bombs that we hear overhead, the planes, and so there's this war going on, and they're getting pieces as much as they can. And Miep, who comes from the outside world, Miep Gijs, who was a real person, and she really helped them and saved them. She comes up once in a while. She's like a breath of the outside. She has new clothes. They are wearing the same three things for all these years. She's got some food. She brings a cake. She brings news. She has fresh air. She buys them presents. So there's the outside world coming in, and so we can, as an audience, we can just watch this family drama and this fight, and then but the the words that we find out, especially like when Mr. Dussel comes, he tells what's happening outside, that they don't have much information. They have little radio, but so this one's been taken away and that one died and they've done this and they've stopped this, and they're horrified by this, and they're pieces of news about people they know, and I think the audience can also relate to that.
Does the family know that people are being taken away?
They do know, because that's why they are gone into hiding. But then when he comes, which is a little bit later, the actual people that are friends of theirs, actual people that are neighbors, people that they know, have disappeared, have gone away, and so it becomes more real to them, the war. And it goes on for a long time. So we get, and they're in the radio broadcasts, we hear Hitler, we hear these Nazi songs, just snippets come to them. And there's a couple of times when they might get discovered, and there's that kind of anxiety, because they and we are aware that there's danger, peril for them.
So they never left the apartment, right? They never.
Nobody leaves.
And they were there for what? Like
2 years.
2 years.
They never leave, and that confinement is, from a just human drama point of view, very interesting to watch.
Now, when you're staging this, do you try to? Are you having a small confined space? Are you trying to?
You put there are 7 beds, okay, in this play. You have a regular size stage, and you have to have a big, we were just talking about the set today. We haven't started rehearsals, so we were talking about the set with the set designer today and pacing it out. And you have a sort of a living area where they have a table and chairs and kitchen, a bathroom, and so forth. But in addition to that, on that floor, there are 7 beds.
Okay.
That's crowded.
So
and no matter what you do, you're going to feel that they have.
Did they only have the one room?
No, it was a couple of floors actually, but there were some little rooms. But the rooms are like kennels, really, really small. So it's a sort of a part of a warehouse. Mr. Frank was in the. I think he was in the business of. Making preserves and jelly and stuff like that. And this was a building that was sort of attached and upstairs in the back of his factory. And they it was a little warren of tiny little rooms. And so you feel the presence of everyone else all the time. When they fight and argue, the Van Daan family argues, the husband and wife are kind of a little crass and vulgar, and they argue, and there's no getting away from it. So you will feel that confinement. But anyway, when they finally get taken away, and then Mr. Frank explains what happened to everybody, it all becomes extra real. But that's just one more. It's like petals, you open up and there's more and more.
Now, is that speech at the end in the original version?
No.
Oh, so that's okay. So that is a big change. Addressing the audience with
huge. I think that's the biggest. That is really the biggest change.
Does the original play end with?
They sit at a tableau at the table. You hear the Nazis coming up the stairs, and the smashing and the breaking and the yelling, and they're kind of clinging to each other at the table, and the lights go out, and you hear her say, "I think people are very good at heart."
I think people are very good.
Yeah, I still believe people are good at heart, and so it's all left to your imagination.
Yeah.
With this play. This version, you find out, they get taken away, and you find out then what happened in those 2 years.
I've read some reviews of this version. They said after this thing at the end, addressed in that, people are crying. It's very quiet. Nobody really. It's not like people start, cheering or anything.
No, that's right.
So, David, have you directed this play before?
No. I directed a play at Sage several years ago called. And Then They Came for Me, Remembering the World of Anne Frank. It has an interesting story behind it. Anne Frank is a character in the play, and it's about a woman named Eva Schloss, who very similarly went into hiding with her family. Her brother and her father died in another camp. She and her mother survived. And then the strangest part about this story is that her mother became married to Otto Frank. after the
okay.
war. And we happened to be taking students to London on a study abroad trip. And I was directing this play in the spring, so I found a way to connect with this woman, and we met.
Oh, really?
And I was able to meet Otto Frank's stepdaughter, who was in her 80s, and she works with the Anne Frank Funds and the Anne Frank Foundation. I think they're two different things. But she was Anne Frank's posthumous stepsister. That's been my experience with the play and Anne Frank.
So most of the people, except for David, are all students?
All students. I have one other actor, and he graduated from Siena, and I would say he's 26, maybe 27. He's a professional actor, equity actor. He's worked at Capitol Rep. He's worked at Troy Foundry Theater. He's worked at Theater Voices. He works at Proctor's. Works for Proctor's. So he is playing Mr. Van Daan. So I have the two sort of fathers to Baecker the play, and then the rest of them are students.
And one's an alum.
Pardon me?
One's an alum at this point.
Oh, yes,
we
that's right.
do
One
have an
just
alum.
graduated this past week.
So you were saying before we started, some of the students may not know the story. Maybe
I
like
don't think they do. I know. I'm saying that the students in my class that I was teaching acting 1 this year, and they're freshmen mostly, and I think that they don't know this story, and I think that they may know vaguely, oh, there was a Holocaust, but I think this makes it, it's a way to get in. In other words, a way to find a regular person that you can relate to, and you follow her story and her family story, and it becomes more real.
So you are an adjunct faculty at
Yes,
Sage,
I
and you
just teach one
acting.
class.
So when Michael was here, he's from your department, Michael Musial. There seems to be a renewed interest in theater for kids. You have a whole department. You can get a degree in theater and musicals. What do you think why do you think it's becoming so popular?
Well, I think it's a great major, but easy for me to say. That's what I have my degrees in. I think that the students in our department really enjoy using theater to teach young people, and I think because of all the morning shows we have, they realize that there are a lot of ways to teach math and science and literature, and theater is one of the ways that you can teach math and science and literature, depending upon the kind of stories that you're exposing people to. So I think that's something that's really unique about our department. We have Saturday camps, we have summer camps, we have a winter camp. Our students get a chance to work with very young people, and the work you do in theater is highly collaborative. There's a lot of critical thinking. Your communication skills are built. There are many opportunities for leadership roles within theater. I think what's really great about the degree is even if you don't go on and do theater, you leave with some very transferable skills, which you can take into any profession.
I think it gets kids away from their computer screens.
Yes, yes.
They got to actually have interaction.
You have to work together very closely.
No, I just taught I taught at SUNY for many, many years. For 9 years I taught acting 1 and acting 2. But this is my second time teaching acting 1 at Sage. And half the class is theater or musical theater majors, and the other half were health sciences, mostly nursing students. And that was the same last time. And in the beginning of the class, you find out why they want to take an acting class. And many of them just want to feel less self-conscious. They want to be able to express themselves. They want to learn how to listen and interact with their patients and so forth. And they bring a perspective, which is absolutely fantastic to the class. So
taking an acting class could help in
other fields. Absolutely.
That's what Dave was saying. I should say on the website for the Sage Theater Institute, there are all kinds of classes and camps for all ages, right? And they go all year round. So why don't we just talk a little bit about upcoming, so Anne Frank, I should mention, Anne Frank is going to be February 5th through the 16th. Many performances are at 10 a.m. for the schools, but people can get tickets for the 10 a.m. ones.
Yeah, absolutely. And if it's sold out, show up anyway. It's a big theater.
And then there are many night performances too, 7:30. So it's all on the website. What is it? Sage
Theater.sage.edu.
theater.sage.edu, and you can buy tickets on there. So upcoming, I just mentioned Anne Frank, February 5th through February 16th. After that, we have 3 performances only in February 21st, 22nd, 23rd. It looks like a high school version, or loosely based on Cyrano de Bergerac.
Yeah, loosely based on Cyrano de Bergerac.
And you're going to have all high school kids in there.
And we're auditioning all high school kids for it, and we're doing it as a way to do outreach to high schools and help them learn more about our program and give them another venue to perform in.
And it's, what kind of play is it? Is it sort of a Cyrano in the high school?
Yeah, it's loosely based. It's Cyrano de Bergerac in a high school.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the greatest plays of all time.
Yes.
That would actually, sounds like fun.
Yeah.
And you're staying with the high school theme. In April, you're doing a play called The Wolves, which I've read about. It's about a girls' soccer, high school soccer team, or college
Yes,
soccer?
and I'm directing that one. It's about a girls' soccer team. Every scene is a warm up to the game. So most of the scenes they're warming up and they're working out their friendships, their interpersonal issues. They're asking questions about what's going on in the news and globally and around the world. And
Now, did you see it in New York?
I never saw it. It was a Pulitzer Prize finalist. A lot of people have been doing it. I'm always looking for plays that have a lot of women in them. And I read it, and I loved it. I said, I got to do this.
Yeah, I read several reviews. People just love this play. I mean, they said it was just fantastic. Do you know this play, Eileen? Oh, okay.
It's very powerful, and I even coached my daughter's soccer team this fall so that I would get ready for it.
And so I was trying to get that. Did you get the play from Amazon? I was looking for that myself.
I bought it on Amazon.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
I didn't know it was okay.
Yeah.
And then finally in May, end of May, going into June, you have I think this is a musical. Benjamin Franklin Is that-
Lives.
Lives.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a very exciting collaboration. Matthew McGilligot, who works at Russell Sage College in the art department, is also a children's theater illustrator and writer. He has a series called Benjamin Frankenstein.
Oh, okay.
And Michael Musial, who worked on Oliver, has written music and lyrics to Benjamin Frankenstein, so it's an entirely new creation. And I know that just this weekend they had another workshop reading of it, getting it ready for production in May.
Oh, okay. And have you heard any of the songs or anything?
I have not heard any of the
Okay.
songs. I've read a little bit of it, yeah.
All right. So, have I forgotten anything?
I think we covered it.
Okay,
Good.
so
Yeah.
that's the new version, or a new adaptation of Diary of Anne Frank at the Sage Theater Institute over in Troy. Their theater is a nice little theater. It's a great theater, a great place to see a play. February 5th through the 16th. You can get tickets online. It should be really good. David's going to be in it. Eileen's directing. And you haven't even started
We'll start
rehearsals yet.
about a
Okay, so
month
very
before
good.
we
So
start.
we will see you next time on Open Door for the Arts.